earned that one too. Okay, great. So I'm just going to say welcome again to Early Childhood Cares. This is one of our parent chats, and it asks the expert for Natalya McComas, who's here, and any questions about social emotional development or behavior in young kids, she is the person to ask. And I'm here with many years of experience to back her up too. So we're scheduled to go for we will be done by 5 o'clock. And as you know, we're recording it. And I just want to say a few things about Early Childhood Cares. I know most of you know who it is, but who we are. But for those of you who might be listening to this on YouTube or on our website, we are Early Childhood Cares provides early intervention and early childhood special education to infants, toddlers, and preschool age children in Lane County. All our services are free to eligible children. And if you go to our website, which is earlychildhoodcares.uoregon.edu, there's a little video about what we do, how you can make referrals or tell your friends, or call 541-346-2578. So I'm just going to take 1 minute and introduce. Natalya has worked for Early Childhood Cares for many years, over 20. Would you say, Natalya? And she has really developed an expertise in social emotional development and behavior. She also is in such demand in this state that she now facilitates the statewide working group and also the coaches throughout Oregon that are working with young kids on social emotional development and behavior. And we have written a curriculum as a group and have worked with North Carolina and other states with it. So she comes with a lot of experience. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Natalya. And do you want me to share the slides when it's time?
If you give me share privilege, I can do that. So thanks, Judy, for that introduction. It puts a lot of pressure on me, and so I'll do the best I can. Usually I'm working with families individually in problem-solving behavior, and unless I'm teaching, and then, I'm giving more general information or targeting it to a specific topic. And so I did pull together just 5 slides to kind of give that general information about the type of behavior support that our program uses. And I thought I would start there and then kind of answer your questions, unless you think it would be helpful to let me know what those questions are, and maybe I could tie them in with the things I have on those slides too. That's the other way we could do it. I don't know if you have already kind of thought about what you want to ask me. I was trying to think about like how to get the conversation started. So I can go either way. I could start with your questions, or I could start with the PowerPoint.
I have questions, but I mean, you can answer them now or later, whatever you think works better.
Okay, how about if we take that question and I'll see if I can weave it into the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm sure it's not that unusual. We get these services for the younger kid, but the younger kid seems really on track right now. So I have questions about the 4-year-old, 4.5-year-old, he is such a love and really passionate about whatever he's into right now. And so moving from point A to point B can be challenging. I'm sure none of this is unusual.
No.
And so it's pretty clear at night, like there's some natural consequences, like we're only going to have time for 1 story instead of 2, but it's more of a problem when it's just like, what does he care if he's late to daycare? You know what I mean? Like when there's not like an immediate, natural consequence. And I'll add that he's very emotionally, I call him the intimacy junkie. He likes to be with his people, his parents, his sister. He's really wants that attention. He's not very independent seeking. He's much more intimacy seeking. So I've started to sometimes, like, if he's in the bathroom and he's just taking forever to like floss or like wipe his butt, or if he's taking forever to put on his lotion that he has to put on every day, and I made it clear, like, we're going to run out of time for breakfast, whatever. Sometimes I'll say, you know what, I'm going to go do something else and you let me know when you're ready, and then I'll come back to help. He likes me to just watch him while he does these things sometimes. And then he gets very upset. And sort of is like, no, I'm ready. So I guess, I don't know, then I feel bad about it. And I feel like, well, am I being a little bit emotionally manipulative? Like, is there a message there of like, okay, I'm sort of like withdrawing something you want emotionally in order to get you to like speed up, And so I guess I'm just not sure. It works, but I don't really know if it's the healthiest thing. And that's kind of my question. And or like what are some suggestions that you have? I love that he's engrossed by the thing, whatever the thing is, and he's wiping his butt into like the most fun activity. And so I just want to be sort of supportive of his spirit, which is a very lively spirit, but also like we need to move on with the day sometimes. So anyway, so just curious what you think about what I'm doing. Like, is that maybe not nice? I don't know. And then what other thoughts you have on it?
I think you sound like a very warm and responsive and very sensitive parent who is trying to do all of those things to let your child know that you care about them and that you value what they're doing. So I think that's the main thing I'm hearing from you. And I am going to talk about transitions when we look at the PowerPoint. So I'm going to answer your question about the transition piece at that time, because that's when behaviors often occur. That's where like the majority of behaviors occur is during transitions between activities or between places and things like that. So I'm going to highlight that. If I don't fully address it when I get to that slide, ask me some more so that I can help resolve it for you. Okay. Anybody else have a question they want me to have in the back of my mind as I'm going through the slides?
I guess, my little 4-year-old, 4 years and 3 months, he's pretty neurotypical, except for communication. You were working on speech and expressing himself, but our problems have been mainly defiance with my husband, just like one person, and how can he better communicate with him, I guess, and kind of reduce that defiance. And the other one is, along with this, COVID world, he hasn't gotten to socialize very much, and just ways that we can help him learn how to work and play with others.
Yeah, those are really great questions. And it's not at all uncommon for children to have a preference for one parent over the other when they're younger. And even as they get older, you may see that switch. So that's not uncommon. What I would suggest as far as the communication goes is thinking about, does your husband understand his communication, or does he struggle with trying to understand him?
No, he's understood. It's
Understood.
more of, getting out what he wants. He'll just get really upset and start crying, and we'll be like, what's wrong? We don't know what's wrong. He knows what's wrong.
Yeah.
So, that's been the difficult part, is the communicating, what your needs are, if there's like some key phrases or some different ways that we can approach it. That might be more, instead of just being like, what's wrong,
Right. And I'm going to address that part too, because one of the things that we know is that when you can connect with a child where they are feeling wise first, and then move to the problem solving, they can hear you and kind of go with you for a longer period of time in that problem solving piece. But if you jump to problem solving first and ask what can I do, or what happened, or and do that before you say, oh, you look so sad, you're trying to tell me what you need and those words aren't coming right now, I see that you're feeling sad, and kind of stay with the feeling for a moment to get that connection. Because if you get that connection, then you get more mileage with the problem solving.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I think that might be part of the issue between my husband and I, because I'm like, that's what I do. I'm like, oh, you're upset. Like, what's going on? Tell me how you feel. And my husband's, more like, what's wrong? What's happening? So this is more for my husband too. So
I can try to
try to, maybe make him watch this a little bit.
We're recording this.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's really common for many people to want to jump to problem solving. We want to fix problems, and we don't want our children to hurt and feel in pain and frustrated and all of that. So it really is very common. And as an adult, you just have to retrain yourself to always start with feelings first and then solving the problem second. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to the PowerPoint, because I really want to connect this to that information and give you a broader context of strategies and resources that I think are going to be really useful. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Bev, I don't see you, but before I move on, did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay, I'll just move to the share screen. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Let me put it in presenter or slideshow for you. There we go. Can you see it?
Yep.
So we use a framework called the pyramid model, and you can see it in this pyramid, that picture that I've put on here. And that's our framework for supporting children's social emotional development and responding to challenging behavior. And you can see it has different tiers in it. And I'm going to talk about each of those and how they build on each other and how they support children. And with this model, we also always do it in collaboration with parents. So that's why I said, usually when I'm working with parents, everybody's response is more individualized, because I'm using your strengths and your particular situation to figure out what the best response is to support you. And it's harder to do if I were just to, do it from an expert model and say, this is what you do and give you some general strategies. So keep that in mind, because what I say today may not be tailored quite enough for what you need. And other service providers can help with that, or I can work with them to help match the response for you in particular. But hopefully today, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to resonate with you, and it's going to make sense, and you're going to take away pieces that will help in the questions that you have. So this is our model, and we start with thinking about, like, how do we support our staff in order to put these practices into place, having that effective workforce, and having clear procedures and policies that drive that. And then there's these different tiers that are based on the relationships that we develop with children, and the types of environments that we set up for them, and the skills that we teach, and then individualizing for children if they need that level of support. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And it's based on a model that was developed at the University of Oregon in the 1980s and has been used nationwide for many, many years. And the reason why we use it is because it has been shown to decrease problem behaviors and increase children's social skills. Oops, uh-oh. Sorry, looks like I missed a slide here. Can you see a slide that says how we support children?
Yeah.
Okay. Some reason when I had it in slideshow, it doesn't want to go to that one.
Just show it maybe in the other.
Well, for some reason, it doesn't want to go to the next slide that I want to show you. So I'm going to stay on this one because I can do it from this one too. So what that slide I wanted to show you was just those three tiers, the blue, the green, and the red. And the blue tier being kind of tier 1, that's called our universal tier that suggests that everything that we do at this level works for all children, and that it is the foundation that they need for their social emotional development. So when Julie was describing kind of all those nurturing, wonderful, responsive things that she was doing with her children, that really is the essence of this tier 1, that when you put positive relationships into place with your child by being nurturing, by being responsive to their needs, by being sensitive to their needs, then you're developing a relationship that fosters that willingness and that interest in being cooperative with you. And if that doesn't get nurtured, then you can see why children may not be as eager to follow your directions and follow your demands, because they're not getting that positive reward that they get out of building that relationship with you. So that's why it's so important. And we also think about it in terms of the modeling that we do in front of children. So thinking about having positive interactions between the adults that are in the environment, in their homes, in their classrooms, and out in community events also shows them what social skills they need to develop and interact with others. So that's a really important part of it. And the other part is structuring the environment. And so when we put into place things like routines that are predictable for children, that helps with their regulation and knowing what to expect that will come next. And this pandemic has really highlighted the importance of that, in that we all experienced some form of not knowing what was going to happen next and our routines being disrupted. And so it dysregulates us when we don't feel like we know what's going to happen next. And kids really need to know that. They're highly dependent on us at a young age. So predictable routines are important. Preparing children for transitions is really important, because children need help in that kind of the shifting of gears from I'm really invested in riding my bike right now and going really fast, and then mom wants me to stop and go to dinner. And I can't just stop on a dime and go to dinner. I need some warning that in 5 minutes I will need to stop and come to dinner, or in 1 minute I'll need that warning again. So I know that I've got to slow down and start making that transition to get ready to go to that thing that I don't like as much, or that it's not as interesting to me as much right now. But kids need help with that grading down from I'm really passionate, interested, focused on this, to I've got to change and do something else. So that's why transitions are so important. And then being really clear about the expectations. Because if you're not clear about what those are, kids aren't either. And then they'll only know, and you'll only know when they break them. And then the response that you have when children break an expectation or a rule that they didn't know about is usually more of a negative response than if you teach it in advance and you're approaching it from, I want to help you understand what I expect of you, so you know what to do here. So that's kind of that bottom tier. And then the middle tier is focusing on intentional teaching of social skills. So teaching problem solving to children, teaching how to be a friend to other peers, teaching children how to identify their emotions in themselves and emotions in other people, and then how to name those emotions so that they can tame those emotions. And then finally, at the top of the pyramid, if we've done all of those things and still children have some behaviors that we're concerned about and those things aren't enough support, then we individualize and we create a particular plan of support, and we use assessment and evaluation information to help us develop that plan, and we work together with other people who are serving children who might be other providers. So the takeaways that I would like you to have from today are that all behavior is a form of communication. So no matter what children are doing, it's trying to communicate something to us. And because children are young and they're still developing language, we often see it acted out in actions or gestures or expressions on their face, as opposed to clear communication. And so I want you just to kind of think about that when you see a behavior. What do you think that behavior is trying to communicate to you? And then just a reminder that children who are 5 and under, at the maximum, they've only been on this planet for 60 months. And so their experience base is so small that it's really important that we think about how to provide opportunities and experiences to help develop experience that will support them with learning skills. And really important to always assume that everyone is doing the best they can. Children are doing the best they can with the skills that they have at this point in time, in the conditions and the situations and with the people that they're surrounded by. And you're doing the best that you can in the conditions that you're in, the situation that you're experiencing, and everything that you know about child development up to this point. So everybody's doing the best they can. And there's no perfect parenting. I wish there were, but there isn't. Everybody has good days and everybody has bad days. And that's just how it is. And we learn from them and we move forward. And you're not the only one who has a child with challenging behavior. I think everybody has had a child with challenging behavior at some point in their life. So it may feel like that sometimes, but the truth is you're not the only one. And you know more than you think you do. You may feel like you're at a loss for figuring out how to respond to behavior, but I bet if someone talked you through it, they would find that you have some really important strengths that you can use to solve problems and to figure out how to support your child. And there are 4 S's that children really benefit from. And if you don't remember much of anything else, these are really important ones to remember, that when children feel safe, when they feel seen, like you're noticing them, you're paying attention to them, they're soothed when they're dysregulated and they need comforting, and they're secure. Those are the essential components of helping children deal with anything. So those are really important things to kind of keep bringing yourself back to. Does my child have these things, and how can I put these into place to help them have them? And then always responding sooner to your child rather than later, because if you can start to notice when things are starting to go awry and you respond at that point, it's so much easier to bring children back down to a calm place to help them out than if you don't notice and they get to that peak of where they're just throwing a tantrum and they don't know how to regulate themselves at all. It's much harder to kind of bring them down. You can still do it. It's just easier if you start sooner rather than later. And a really big one here, the last one, is always think about how to connect with children before you correct them. That will go a long way if that's your intent, is to connect with them, understand where they're coming from, and then help them solve that problem. And then there are a zillion behavior strategies that you could use, all kinds of things that support children. These are the ones that I think are most commonly used and have a big bang for their buck. So I just want to highlight these with you, with these, and just maybe give you a minute to kind of look over them first and see if anything is familiar to you or anything is unfamiliar. When you look at this list, are there strategies here that you're using pretty regularly?
I have a question about it.
Uh-huh.
You know, I feel like not only do we try to use positive reinforcement, like for doing hard things, as a strategy, but it just feels very genuine. We're just so excited every time he does a thing. But I have read, you read the New York Times, parenting columns, whatever, this concept that like overpraising children can be a problem, leads to lower self-esteem in the long run. And I really feel like it's just genuine, but that has concerned me a little bit sometimes. It's like, oh, you did this really basic thing. I'm so happy for you, and I truly am. But I just wonder if you have any thoughts on that. Like, you hear you're supposed to do positive reinforcement, but then also you hear that you don't want to overpraise. So I'm just wondering if you can help explicate that at all.
Yes, I can, because that is coming up more and more where people are having questions about it. And what they're often talking about is that the positive praise that people sometimes get stuck in a rut doing is kind of repeating things that are like, good job, great, kind of vague, not really with that genuineness that I think you're trying to express to me that you pair with yours. Maybe they're just doing kind of in this repetitive way, and it may not have really any significance to the child because it's not paired with some descriptive information like, wow, you climbed all the way to the top of the ladder today. You have never done that before. Wow. Giving them a little bit more information about why you're giving them that feedback is what makes it useful. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, great. And the next one, which is giving recognition for doing hard things. Judy, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that, just to add on, and maybe you were going to say it with the hard things, is I think the overpraising is praising everything, even things that your kids do easily also. So, really focusing on the things they're learning that are genuinely hard for them, that are things that you really want to call out, is different too.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Judy. That is really important. And the giving recognition for doing hard things, I put that on there because when you give that type of information to children, it builds their resilience. It teaches them that when another hard thing comes up, they can go back and think, I've already done a hard thing, so I can probably do another hard thing. And so that's kind of the importance of that one, is that you want kids to have some awareness that they are capable of doing hard things. Are there other items on this list that are ones that you use, you have found helpful, or you have questions about?
I had a question on the provide security objects for transitions.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean exactly? Like give them their favorite toy when we're going from one thing to another? Is that what it means?
It does mean that sometimes children really do well with those transitions if they just have something that they feel secure with to go with. And it's so easy to do, but sometimes we forget those little things have a lot of value to children.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes they actually have two. So if kids, let's say at school, are moving from one activity to another, that's sort of a time that's more of a high probability time to poke someone, get in line, do something with your hands. And sometimes if kids are holding something or doing something else, they will be less likely to do some of those other behaviors.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. We do intentional planning around that in classrooms to have children carry one thing to another place. Sometimes kids carry, the safety kit outside to help a teacher, but for the same purposes of keeping their hands busy.
I have an item on there I'd like to call out, which is teach children skills. Because I think for me as an educator, we're always teaching skills to kids. We all know we teach kids to read or to identify colors or shapes or whatever. Those are skills we teach. And for some reason, sometimes we feel like kids should just intuit social behaviors or how they're supposed to behave in different situations. I know that sounds funny, but I think it's really just been the last years where we've really paid attention to teaching social skills, to helping kids really identify what their emotions are and express them. So there is a really strong teaching component, and sometimes kids misbehave because they don't know how to behave.
Absolutely. And that is really a good point, Judy, because over the years, what I've noticed from when I first started teaching, the way that we would teach things like friendship skills were often paired with holidays like, Valentine's Day. We would make a big deal about, doing something kind for, someone else and accepting something kind, and just the whole week talk about friendship skills and that kind of thing. And then it would just kind of fade out, and we would have that kind of like, oh, they'll pick it up from their parents, or they'll pick it up, watching us do these different things throughout the year, but didn't have as much of an intentional focus to identify, well, what are those skills that kids need to learn to become a friend, and how do they learn those skills, and how do we make a curriculum to plan every day to work on those and reinforce kids for using those skills. So I see that's where we've moved from, is kind of more haphazardly approaching it to much more intentional approaching of those skills that are social skills, communication skills, and cognitive skills.
And related to that, when you were talking about the pyramid and you were talking about the environment, you see this in schools, but I also see this in homes where people, one way you teach them is by setting, you might call them class rules, but at home they could be, what are the values in our home or something, to be kind to each other, to share, and then you actually teach what those are with examples. And those are universal strategies that you want to impart.
Right, absolutely. And that's another one that in homes is often one that parents may feel differently about. One parent may think that the rules are X and the other person thinks they're Y, and they've never really had a conversation about, well, what are our family rules? What are the most important things that we want our kids to be following when they're at home? And only like 3 to 5 things. You don't need to have an overwhelming number of rules in your house. You need to have 3 to 5 things that are really important to you that you're teaching and you're catching your kids doing and reinforcing and letting them know, yeah, that is what we expect.
I have a question about the teaching of skills, something that we've been attempting to teach, but I don't know how well it's working, is just how to calm, right? So we'll sit, we'll breathe, blah, 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 because just there's times where he's going loco and there's just no other like nothing's going to get done until you just pause and calm. But we don't do it in a punitive way, but it does, I don't know, like he refuses to breathe now. He'll have this thing where I'm supposed to count to 60. I don't know. I guess, again, I'm just sort of like, he's a spirited kid and he's a little loco, and like that's incompatible with the household sometimes. But I don't know, I don't want him to get this negative feeling of like that there's something wrong when he's off the wall, you know what I mean? But so I don't know, it just ends up kind of being a little bit of a power struggle over the moment of pausing to calm, is I guess what I'm saying. Like I'll say, okay, I'm going to count to 60, and if he's like sitting on his bed chilling, but then he'll start doing something and I go, oh, I got to go back to 1, so I don't know. It worked for a time where we'd sit and breathe together, but he's a little bit rebelling against it. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
One thought that comes to mind is that he may need another strategy for calming, that he's learned the one that you've taught him and now he's ready for something else. He seems like he's an inquisitive kid and he likes different things. So I would think about that. Like, are you teaching him multiple ways? And
what's another way? I don't know.
Well, there are lots of ways. One of the ones that I do, and a lot of kids really like, is bring your shark under the water and you put your hand on top of your head and you talk about bringing your shark under the water to calm them. And so the shark's out of the water and we're going to bring it in the water. So taking a deep breath and then bring him under the water. So that one's kind of a fun one that a lot of kids like. That's one way to do it. That's on a website called the Devereaux Center. And one of the people on the site she has a section called Tuesday Tips. And she has lots of ideas like that. So that's a great one to reference. And then we have books that we make up here that are calming books. I think I can show you. This one's called I Can Get Calm. And it's just a little story about ways that you can get calm. And it talks about, kids being wiggly and needing to move and all of that. And then times that they need to get calm. So that would be another way to do it. And then we have another one called Tucker Turtle, takes time to tuck and think. And this is one like when you're getting really upset or wiggly or can't focus, that sometimes we have to act like a turtle, and we use like a little turtle puppet and talk about sometimes we need to just tuck in our shells and take some deep breaths and quiet our bodies and calm our bodies until we're ready to come out with a calm body or with a solution to a problem.
Okay. So I guess it sounds like what you're saying is things that would convince him to calm down versus things that are actual things he could do other than breathing.
I would reframe it that what I would be doing is teaching him some other ways to calm down. So it's different. It gives him different ideas about how you can do it. You could pretend you're a turtle and tuck like a turtle. And, sometimes kids take a blanket and cover their heads like they're in their turtle shell, or you can take a box and make it look like a turtle and you get in there, the turtle box, to do your tucking and calming and breathing. So it's just kind of creating some novelty to the same idea that you want to teach them to calm in different ways.
That makes so much sense. Thank you. Yeah, he's not like it's not a tantrum situation. It's like, instead of brushing my teeth, I'm like squirting toothpaste everywhere or whatever. Like it's just making things more fun and exciting, I think, within his world, but it's sometimes incompatible with, life.
Right. And sometimes that's about looking at your schedule. Have you built in enough, active times in the day? So he is getting that energy out and that wiggliness out so that when it comes to being more focused and calmer in an activity, he can do that.
I mean, he's at a daycare all day where they spend all day running around outside. So
okay. So he's getting plenty of that.
Yes, it's just him,
Yeah. So you could do the shark one right before you start doing the brushing teeth.
With the blanket. That's really good.
And a good time, at least I have a granddaughter who gets very, very active. And when she's like in that state.
Oh yeah.
Her parents, we've talked about this, and my son was the same way. Talk about some of these strategies when he's not in that state.
Yeah,
practice some of them, see what he likes.
Yeah.
So, we're going to use that next time you get into your, whatever you call it, when you're wound up or when you need to.
That's a great idea.
Quiet. And then it's familiar, and he gets to practice it when he's not in that state, and you're not forcing it then, which is the time that you never can. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anything else on this page you want to talk about or have me talk about?
Any thoughts on the what we talked about before on the you were talking about transitions, but just getting him to move along. And also, do you think it's okay when I say, like, when you're ready to actually brush your teeth, I'll come back, even if that's really like upsetting to him? Do you think that's okay? Or do you have another thought on that?
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like it feels a little manipulative. It feels like, I mean, it works, but like, it feels a little manipulative. It feels like I know that he wants me there while he does this task. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, oh, I'm going to go brush my own teeth, or I'm going to go do dishes until you're ready for me. But really, I don't know. It just feels a little manipulative, but I also don't really have, I mean, it's not horrible. I don't think it's awful, but like, it does feel a little bit like I'm withdrawing something that he wants emotionally in order to get him to move on down the road. But I don't know. I mean, no discipline technique is perfect. It's certainly better than a lot of others I could think of, but maybe there's something better out there. I don't know.
Well, I hear something that I think is really important, and that is you're saying that when you're ready, I'll be there to watch.
Yeah.
So I think that's totally reasonable to say to a child, tell me when you're ready and I'll be right there. Okay. Until you're ready, I'm going to be doing the dishes and whatever. And then you can let go of some of that conflict you're having about, am I taking away my attention? No, you're just saying, when you're ready, I'll be there. Let me know when you're ready.
And that's more positive, when you're ready, versus like, I'm going to go now, let me know when you're ready. I think it's more positive to be like, when you're ready, I'll come back,
Right.
That
Right.
makes-
Exactly.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Some kids respond really well. And I don't know, see, sometimes those delay tactics, like if you're trying to get ready to go to school or get somewhere on time, you can't really just wait till they're ready. Sometimes life just doesn't. And a beat the clock kind of activity, some kids respond really well to that. It can be, it can be a sand timer that they can watch, or there's little kid ones you say, when it goes to here, you're done, or this is, let's see if we can beat it, get everything done before. Sometimes making it that kind of game when you have a deadline is helpful too.
Really smart.
What do you think, Judy? Should I move on or cover any of these?
I'm just looking. Sure, why don't you move on, unless someone else has something you haven't covered.
I don't see anybody saying anything. So I'm just going to move on, and then we can talk after I cover this piece of it. I just wanted to let you know what some of the resources were at EC Cares, so that you could ask for them from whoever the provider is that's working with you from our agency. So we all consider ourselves service providers. We all have different titles. We have an EI/ECSC specialist. We have occupational therapists, physical therapists, autism consultants, behavior consultants. What else do we have, Judy? Lots of different titles of service providers. So you might be working with one of them. And then we have a family support specialist, and Judy's been helping out with this, but we also have another person who has that role in our agency, who's doing that. And then we have a library with all kinds of books that service providers can check out to you if you have a particular topic that you're interested in. We have ones that are focused on behavior and on social emotional development in children, but a range of other topics as well. And then like this parent chat, we have other topics that we're addressing at those that may be related to a behavior problem that you're experiencing. So those are announced through our newsletter. And then we also have access to community resources and can help share that information with you if you want to connect with another community resource. And then there's a couple websites and an app and a podcast that I want to mention to you. There's a national one called the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations, and it's developed for both practitioners and parents. And there's a section on it called the Backpack Connection series that's really specific to parents, and it has like one-page handouts on almost every topic you can think about related to kind of a behavior challenge that you might be experiencing. So it has like 3 or 4 strategies listed in the one-page handout, and they're often strategies that teachers are using in classrooms. So it could support you doing the same type of strategy at home that they're using in the classroom. And then there's another website called the Barton Lab, and she has a family resource section that just has a variety of resources that are really nicely created and very visually attractive. So a lot of visual information versus a lot of text. There's a little bit of text, but she does a lot of her communication visually in these resources. And then the last one is a podcast called Raising Good Humans. And Dr. Elisa connects with experts all over the world and creates these really nice podcasts to address different issues, questions parents have about children's development and their behavior.
Do we have any more calm down kits in our library? Do you know?
We don't, but I did bring mine. It's kind of well used.
I have one too. I'm happy to lend. A staff person made these and marketed them. And there's a great book in there. When you asked about strategies, and there's pictures, and that's something you could read with your son, and he could choose different strategies.
Mhm.
Where can I get a calm down kit?
That-
Julia, you can just email me who your provider is, and I'm happy to lend you mine, or just email me personally.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I don't know if they're still being sold, if Krista still markets them or not, but I'm happy to lend mine.
Awesome.
I've given them to all my own children.
Thank you. That looks amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, so they have the little booklet. They have like a lavender heart in them that you can squeeze and release the lavender scent to them if kids like that. And then there's a little bag of bubbles in here to teach breathing for calming. Those are all in here. And then there's just some individual pictures too, if you want to talk about feelings in a little booklet explaining the kit.
And you don't have a concern, like I just worry sometimes I don't want to be giving the message that, I don't know, that his high energy is a bad thing, but his high energy, while not a bad thing, is something that has to be learned to be managed. You know what I'm saying? Like he's going to go to school in the fall, so I don't know. I mean, do you have any thoughts about messaging around like these moments of like, okay, I try not to make it punitive, but it just feels like it sometimes. It just feels like I'm taking you away from the thing you want to be doing to sit and calm down with me. And like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on just how to message it so it doesn't seem punitive and negative?
It sounds like, something I would tailor to each person who brought this to me as opposed to a general response, because I would want to make sure that it kind of matches what you're comfortable with in saying to him. It sounds like you want to be careful about that. And so I'm not sure like giving you a blanket response is going to be satisfying or the one that's going to work for you. I'm glad to hear that like you're aware that you want to be thoughtful about that balance, because kids need to move to learn, especially young kids. And so I think sometimes we try to make them sit and learn things when actually they could be moving and learning. And I really am cautious about how much I try and shape that at a young age.
I mean, none of this is, both preschools that he's been in have had zero negative. He does whatever the kids are supposed to do. I'm really just talking about kind of getting through the routine in the morning and the evening. Just getting through the routine,
Yeah. And I wonder if part of that is kind of building in some movement things in those routines. So he gets to do that. And that's just part of the routine. So it doesn't feel like it's punitive. Like it's just part of the routine. We get to move when we get ready to do our teeth brushing. We're going to move for a little bit and then we're going to pause and do our teeth brushing. And we'll move a little bit and then we'll slow our bodies down and we'll read a book or whatever.
He tried to teach me that, to be totally honest. He's like, I'm going to run back and forth 10 times before we read a book. And like, now we lost that, but like, let's just bring that. Like, he knew the answer. So thank you for saying that.
It almost sounds like you want to reel it in like a little bit more, like maybe he's not running across the house so much. And a strategy I've used for that is putting little superhero hands on the wall. So it's like a picture of a superhero's hands on the wall. And I pick the one that kids like if they like Batman, they get the Batman gloves on the wall or whatever. And they run in place holding on to Batman's hands, putting their hands on And so kind of like, it gives them some information about where they can do it, limits like, not running across the whole house or throughout the house, but they run in place with Batman hands or whatever.
Do you think running up and down the hallway is not a good idea?
That's your house. If that's okay with you, that's...
Hard time helping him get from high energy to low energy, but I kind of, you're saying maybe it's okay. Like maybe if he has a space to get that at, it'll be easier for him at another time. So, okay, I'm going to try that. We're going to bring that back.
Or at least acknowledging he needs that, it doesn't always calm me down, but go, okay. But, but I think you're also doing him a favor by teaching him. There are going to be times you have to come down, and here's strategies. I'm going to help you learn.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have to learn that in school.
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
that you don't love his energy, and there's going to be lots of places he can do that, and you can show great joy in that.
Yeah,
And there are places that you have to learn to be quiet.
that's
It's
helpful.
just life.
That's a very helpful way of putting it. Yeah. We've
Yeah.
been talking a lot about kindergarten coming, so I think that's another.
I had a child like that.
Yeah.
There's a book called How Does Your Engine Run? And I think that's a really good one to kind of help kids develop awareness that their body's like running really hot right now or really fast, and we got to slow it down. It's just a good analogy to use with children.
That's cool.
Yeah. Jen, do you have any other questions?
No, I think, a lot of things were answered. I feel like we're doing a lot of those things you've mentioned already. Hearing Julie with her son makes me feel a little better because, our kid gets really riled up before bedtime as well. And we use some of those strategies. We've started letting him jump on the bed, but he has to count. So, it's like learning at the same time, and it gets him to count, above 20, maybe 30 next night. It's kind of like that. But I guess I'm more just concerned about like behaviors with socialization, and I think he's going to figure that out when he goes to preschool because he hasn't done that yet.
Mhm.
But I guess we need maybe to model it more, make it a little bit more obvious. Maybe start role playing with the stuffed animals.
Yeah, I think that's a
Something.
fabulous idea. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Does he have like cousins or any family members around that you communicate either through Zoom or any way?
Not his own age. Everybody's an adult. So it's a little difficult, with the younger children because they don't react to him the same way that adults do.
Right. When he does start making connections with peers and having those opportunities, you can take pictures of the peers and put them tape them on a block or like a toilet paper tube or something like that, and then bring those kids pictures into his pretend play. So like when he's building with blocks, he can bring his friend over that's on one of the blocks, and start interacting that way. That's another way to kind of just help them become familiar with peers' names and then act out situations with the peer right there.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that's a really good idea. Or even just, assigning a name to
Yeah.
something,
Mm-hmm. And give yourself a lot of credit for what you're doing in terms of socializing him. The interactions that you're having are also preparing him for his social interactions with peers.
Yeah, I think it's more of the rejection and dealing with that. We just kind of approached that recently at the park, where he's trying to ask to play with other kids, and the other kids are like, well, we don't really know you. Like, you can kind of play next to us, but not with us. And then he'll start crying, and
Oh.
you de-escalate that, but then he just doesn't want to try anymore.
Yeah, handling that disappointment when something doesn't happen as expected.
Yeah.
And something you can consider when things are less locked down, which they're getting there, having a play date with one kid that he likes. I think you can get a lot of practice one-on-one, especially if you're available to help facilitate that. Play dates are really good for that, especially if it's someone he sees, when you get that experience of how do you ask someone to play, or someone wants to play with you, or sharing whatever, you can help with that. And just two kids together are a lot easier.
We'll have to find him a little friend and work on that.
When he goes to school or preschool, or just be aware of someone he might talk about, or then see that those are good people to pursue if you can.
Alrighty.
And
Also-
this probably goes back to the teaching piece too. Like there's a lot of children's stories now that are written to promote children learning how to interact with each other. So picking up those books that are about friends, or character books that are a lot about the interactions between the characters that are positive, kind of looking for those to read to him, so he starts building kind of like those ideas in his head, like when I meet a friend, this is what they do. And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. This is what I can do, with either situation, but practicing through reading is really good.
I didn't even think of that. We have some Daniel Tiger books
Yeah.
that, those are really good about feelings. So
Yes.
I'll pull those out again.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Also, Jen, just something on the thing you said at the beginning that I've been thinking about is our team includes a speech therapist, Tyler, who's really wonderful. And with my daughter, something he's really been encouraging us to do when she's in that upset moment and you don't know what's wrong is literally no words, like no words. He's just like, stop talking, just like hug, comfort, don't even use words, and especially as a kid with some speech delays, we're always sort of trying to get her to say that. I'm like, oh, she's not saying, and he's like, she's not ready. Just hug, comfort, don't even use words because her brain can't even take that in right now. So it's hard to do in practice, but we've been trying to do it. So it might be something to think about kind of when he's upset with your husband.
Yeah, I think we're pushing him a little bit, like you said, because it used to be like, oh, you're upset, give me a hug. Do you want to go calm down? And then we have, we call it the calm down tent, and it's a tent, and he just goes in and just, that's his safe place. That's his place. He sits there, he calms down, and then he comes out and talks to us. But recently, for like year 4, we're going to go to preschool soon. So I think maybe we're pushing him a little hard.
Yeah, he has time to develop those skills. And I know that as a parent, you kind of start worrying about like getting him prepared for kindergarten and all of those things, but realize that you're probably doing more than you think you are. And, give yourself credit for that. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, we need positive reinforcement too.
Yes.
Do we parents need it as much?
We all need reassurance.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Out of time, and so this recording will be on Facebook and on the website and the PowerPoint too with the resources. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Natalya, for sharing your thoughts and all your great information, and for your participation, parents. You are wonderful, and it's a journey. And the cool thing is you just keep getting chances to practice and try new things out. So that is one nice thing about parenting. It's a journey, and it's many years. So yeah.
Very nice to meet everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah,
All right, thank you guys.
Bye-bye.